Hey guys, welcome back. It's a version 2 Saga battle report. It's been a while since I've been able to record. I've just been playing some games, trying to get into the new system, make sure I can pick up all the new rules before I get everything wrong. So this is one of the earlier games. I've managed to take some pictures at the time, and this will be the Welsh up against my Welsh up against my opponent's Scots. It's a 6-point game. So let's have a quick look at the warbands. So the Scots warband, we're looking at 8 Hearthguard, which is in front of his warlord, and 4 Hearthguard, which is to the right of his warlord, 2 8-man warrior units, and a 12 levy unit with bows. And then my Welsh are running an 8 Hearthguard unit with javelins, and then 3 8 warrior units with javelins, and one of them also has horse, and 12 levy with the bow. I really wanted to try out the cavalry, because with the new javelin rules, it's all very exciting. They're a bit more of a glass cannon now, but they get a bit of a bonus on the impact, and I think the javelin rules really do represent well how the throwing weapons work for javelins and such. So, on we go. So the mission we're playing is the standard fighting mission, Champions of Heroes, or whatever it is called. It's the one from the rulebook. There's only one scenario in it now, which is a bit of a shame. But this is the basic one. It's basic points for killing, same as the old rules. 3 levies worth a point, 2 warriors worth a point, 1 Hearthguard's worth a point. Warlord, I think, is worth 4 from memory, and then you get a bonus points for wiping out entire units, which I really like as well. That's added to that, so you really do have to finish off the units and that. As you can see, the setup here, we've got Scots at the top with warriors. Well, the reason we're spread out as well is one of the setup. There's 3 types of setup now. You have the standard 12-in setup, then you have like the diagonal setup. What was the other one? There's another type of setup. There's 3 setups. And then how you set it up is different as well, in which case we had the, you have to be medium apart from everybody, so we all started scattered. Which is good, because that means we get to use our manoeuvre rule, which is new for the thing. But I actually forget in my first turn to use any manoeuvres, and I'll explain a bit more in a minute. So in the first turn, I just spend my turn moving up and moving my cavalry across, so a big picture in a minute. My opponent starts moving towards me. So one of the first things I've already discussed is manoeuvres. This basically gives you one free move which will result in fatigue later on. It has to be their first activation, and it's a free move if you're over 12 away from the enemy, and you can't come within 12 of the enemy. So it's really nice. It allows you to get troops from the back up, and also gives you more dice on your battle board as well. So you actually get to use some abilities, which is also fantastic. So after the first couple of casualties, the Scots do against my levy. That's about it, and we've both moved up, as you can see here. So yeah, as I was saying about the extra dice is really nice in the battle board, because we can also leave dice on the battle board, and it doesn't reduce the pool that you throw. Obviously, it just reduces the amount of dice you actually have to use. So you can now really build up your battle board as well, which makes it so much better. You can't build up individual abilities, so if you have a Saga ability that requires 2 dice, you can't put one on and hope to put one on later. You have to put both on straight away. But this difference does really make the battle board far more exciting. And also, I will say now that they have come across a lot more balanced as well, not only against each other but also in different scales. But I will be putting to this test shortly, because we are doing a little 4-point fun tournament get together at my club in, I think it's like May the 27th. So hopefully I'll have a fair few battle reports from it then. Whether I'll be using my Welsh, I'm unsure, because there's another guy using Welsh. So I might end up digging up my Rohan and use like an Anglo-Saxon force or something. So back to the game. In the centre, I just move up and take a few shots just to cause some casualties on these guys. Yep, javelins are, other than that, still the same, so I get to move, and it's actually now a separate action. So it's a move action and then a free shooting action as a separate action. So this can be stopped or reacted to, unlike the shooting, which you weren't too sure how it worked in the sequence of things. So yep, my javelins move up and throw. Then throw my cavalry in. I'm definitely getting some Welsh cavalry. One thing that put me off the Strathclyde is that they all had to be mounted. Now the Strathclyde and the Welsh list has been combined. You basically take Welsh guys in, the mounted guys in amongst your infantry. So I've got some Welsh mounted warriors with javelins, so this is quite cool. This is my first combat with javelins. Now javelins have changed. Your troops get 1 less armor in combat, but on the turn that you charge, you get +1 to hit. And this is brilliant. It really does make them an impact force and really crap on receiving charges, which I think works far better than the previous one with lowering your armor against shooting and that. So you have to. I did play a game against the Irish. Were both javelin warbands, and it was absolute chaos. I mean, it was death both sides, both charging in, both got low armor anyway, and we get +1 to hit. So obviously I'm going in here hitting on 3s and do enough damage to hit most of them and nearly wipe them out. And then I just move in my other, this is my Hearthguard unit, and just finish them off. That just allows me to reduce my saga pool for my opponent. Also in this saga, warlords now only generate 1. But they have more attacks. This is quite interesting because it's actually made a warlord a far more viable part of the list. He actually gets in there, gets stuck in. You're not too horrified to lose him. Obviously he loses you the 4 points for the slaughter points, but other than that, it's actually good to get him in, and you don't feel his loss quite as much. And also on the upside, levy units that are 6 or more generate saga. Better point out, warrior units also need to be at least 4 or more, so you can't have your little one-man warrior units that take damage generating you saga. Yeah, so went in there, smashed these guys up, and dropped him a saga dice. And this is actually my opponent's turn. One thing I do like, I think it's got 3 or 4 reaction abilities in the Welsh board now. So I'm activating in the opponent's go if I've got some dice on it. And it's quite nice, as I say, because you can keep your dice on it, you can keep those abilities open to you. If you don't use them, you can keep them until next round if you're not desperate to get any dice. And I will say, unlike the Welsh board previously where I probably used 1, maybe 2 abilities, I think I used all but 1 in this game. The only one I didn't use was the terrain one, because I didn't need to rush across the terrain. It's the same as the old one, where you can treat terrain as open for your foot troops. But other than that, yep, really like this. So what he did is he activated the unit at the top, behind the trees there, and I have a movement reaction ability which allows me to move or charge. Now, best point out also, charging is now a separate activation to the movement. And this can make some big changes as well, because abilities have been broken down into, reactions that allow you to move or charge, or get the free charge. So if you can't do the charge, you obviously can't do the ability. Anyway, yes, I use my free charge and go in. And these warriors are doing me proud as they take out the 4 Hearthguard, used as a bodyguard. Put some fatigue on both his warlord and his Hearthguard unit at the bottom. I do take some casualties, but it's all well and accepted. I mean, I'm going in here, so I'm hitting them on 4s, and they had fatigue on them previously because of the unit I wiped out, I believe. So I got that down to 3s. So as I say, these guys can go in and really hit hard now. The only downside is when I am charged. So the old warlord charges in against me. I decide that I won't use any fatigue because he's going to hammer me, because obviously my armor's been reduced. He's hit me on 3s. I had fatigue on me, so he's probably hit me on 2s. 1 managed to survive. Yeah, but these guys, the warlords are much more brutal now. One thing I'll also try and mention here while I've got the warlord on the go, there's no side-by-side anymore. The idea that you charge in with another unit, that's gone, so there's no multiple charges at all. Each charge is resolved and finished, which makes the game a bit simpler. The resilience has changed. Resilience now is only, you used to ignore 1, but now you can ignore multiples, but it costs you a fatigue for each one. Every unit now has got the 3 fatigue limit, so everyone's the same. So in theory, you can block 3 hits now with your warlord. Another downside with the warlord, though, you can't pass on wounds like you could before with the bodyguard or whatever it was. The only bodyguard units are Hearthguard. So you've got to keep your warlord near his Hearthguard if you want to pass on wounds, which does make a big difference as well. Also makes the Hearthguard that little bit more useful as well, though expensive to pass on wounds. Okay, down here he gets another shot off against him. The Scots have got some ability, I can't remember off my hand. I think it makes you activate a unit for shooting, but it uses a common dice. So he's basically activating his levy unit with a common dice, and I think it gives you +2 attack dice. Another thing to point out, your initial pool of attack dice has been limited for 8 for shooting and 16 for combat, which basically wipes out the big 12-man Hearthguard units, probably because the 12 javelin cavalry smash was really annoying, and also just reduces the amount of dice as well, so I'm not totally against this. I don't think I ever took a 12-man unit, really. I might have tried it out once with some sneaky crusaders in an all-cavalry unit just to see what it did with a banner. Other than that, I haven't really tried it, so it doesn't affect me too much. Okay, talking about building up the battle board, the Scots player has been quietly building up his battle board. One of the Scots abilities is the same as the old one. You get to roll, it's an orders reaction, get to roll 3 dice, put it on your battle board. That was always great. Yeah, here he uses various abilities, increasing his defense dice to an incredible amount, and then gets, is it like an attack for every defense dice? Basically, I think he was nearly maxed out here on the amount of dice he could throw. And he wiped out my 8-man Hearthguard unit for no loss for himself. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. And as you can see, he then moves in here to try and finish my warrior unit. And I leave the fatigue on him. I accept he's going to die, and I don't want these guys' fatigue to slow him down a bit. I better mention here, movement has changed a bit as well. Movement can only be done in straight lines, so you can't bend the rule or anything. You move one model, and then all the other models have to end up within a medium. Let me guess right. No, short for infantry, medium for cavalry of the first model moved, and everyone has to be within VS of everyone as well. It sounds a bit gimmicky, but at the end of the day, I think most people moved the same. Cavalry also can break down their long move to 2 medium moves, but they can only charge on a long move. And this is quite interesting because this has reduced cavalry's ability to charge, sneakily so well now. You have to have straight lines towards the opponent, so you can actually block off cavalry now, which is quite interesting. Yeah, that chap died. Okay, so over here, I believe I taunt the levy into combat with me, so I've got all my attacks. Also, there's no distance in combat as well. It would be a nice thing to mention. I think it used to be like you have to be within VS of a model that's in base contact with the enemy. Now that's out the window. Basically, if you can move to reach, you move all your other guys up to get as close as possible, and everyone just fights. Makes life a lot easier. I kind of liked the fact that you could do like a flank attack and reduce the amount of attacks coming towards you. But I can live with this. It's not a problem. And this is how the combat resolved. And as you can see here, it not looking too good for the levy. I managed to get a good few attacks in. I might have used some SAGA abilities here to make extra attacks, but other than that, it looks good. And my warlord runs up here and chucks a javelin for free, so I thought I may as well try and reduce his pool of Hearthguard here. Yeah, I think they've got 4 shots, I believe. Warlords, javelin warlords, obviously. So that's not too bad. It gave me a chance to kill an extra one off. And then I throw myself into the combat against his warlord. Again, this is quite brutal. I've got a javelin, so his armor's already reduced by 1. He had 3 fatigue on him, so he's exhausted, which means that he's at -1 to hit me. And that's done at the beginning of the combat. You work out whether they're exhausted or not. So if I spend fatigue, he doesn't become unexhausted. So he's at -1 to hit me, which cancels out my javelin disadvantage with my armor's -1 in combat. So I go in and I'm +1 to hit him, and then he had the 3 fatigue, so I just dropped his armor. Another new point. You can use your fatigues multiple times, so I can drop his armor by 2, which I probably did. which goes down to the minimum of a 2+, and your defense wise goes up to a maximum of 6. So I went in there with 8 attacks, hitting on 2s, and he's hitting me back on I think it was 2s. Yes, because we've got fatigue Spenger. Another point as well, how to spend Saga abilities. Before it was the attacker spent his Saga abilities, then the defender spends his. This time it's now the attacker spends his Saga abilities or fatigue, then it goes to his opponent, has a chance to do one, then it goes back and it alternates. So basically you have a chance to kind of react one at a time, and whether you want to boost it up to ridiculous levels as you go, until both players say they're done and it's finished, which I think is a much better system as well. I like that. Again, it's just making the battle board more survivable. You don't have to just rely on, oh, he might use defensibility, so I'll just mass out. Doing the one at a time just means you've got more on the battle board, and it's just making it last a lot longer, which makes the games far more interesting. As I say, with maneuverability, you don't have to spend so many points in trying to get your troops around. And with the able to store on it and not reduce your amount of dice, it means you've got abilities on there you can keep for later. And now with this as well, with the alternate system, you can decide far more practically how much you really want to kill the opponent. So this is how we're looking at the end of, I believe that's turn 3. The big red dice on the left hand side might not have been moved, but I think we're around turn 3. Sometimes it can be quite hard to tell because, as I say, I can react. Move in his direction phase makes things harder to record, but much more fun to play. The opponent's got to think, you know, which one do I activate? How do I activate him? Knowing if I move this unit, I might get charged over here, and I love that. It's really made the Welsh board interesting, and I'm not saying it's overpowered. The Scots board is fantastic as well. It's been hard work getting through his defense dice and abilities and never-ending abilities. No, it's been really good. So yep, okay, he's again, what's happened here? Again, this is my opponent's phase. He's about to move someone. I get to react first with a shooting. So I move up, it must be a move, so I move up these guys and throw some javelins. I managed to get another casualty, and these Hearthguard are about to move into my warlord to take him out, and which they do relatively easily. Again, I was already exhausted, so I did -1 to hit. Because I had 3 fatigue, it meant basically had no resilience either, so he was a goner anyway. Okay, now as we come towards the end part of the game, I'm going to pull all my man back here, take out his levy. As you can see, I've already reduced them to 5 models. That's really important because they no longer generate Saga dice, so he's down to 2 Saga dice. And so what I'll do, I'll concentrate on getting the levy here and form up a little shield wall and start peppering these guys, because at the moment I have the range advantage if I can take out his levy. So the shooting starts, I move up, start firing, I then bring everyone else up, start shooting, and then finally throw in my warriors into the combat to take him out. So my opponent tries to move in. I have reaction abilities which allows me to shoot at him. If he finishes with an M, that's why I set my guys up like this. So he finishes with an M, everyone gets to shoot, and then he finally pushes into combat. And I do some damage which surprised me and surprised him, and basically takes his Hearthguard out of the game, leaving his guy all by himself. So this is how the game ends. I mean, this is it. He can't do anything else. I can't finish him off. My amount of throwing fails miserably, and I don't kill him. And we tot up the victory points, and it is a victory to the Welsh. Now, that was a really awesome game. The new rules, I think, are such an improvement. They've made the battle boards far more useful. Just to be able to reduce the dice, as I say, for moving, and you can keep dice on without it costing you. It has made the battle boards so much more useful. So making the game far more tactical, which I can only say can be a good thing. The javelin rules, really like it. It makes them really good on the impact. Well, not really good, makes them good on the impact with that +1, so you know you're going to get the damage through. I mean, if they've got fatigue on them, you could be dropping them by 2 armour. That's a bit scary. Downside is, as you could see by my Hearthguard, which got charged, yeah, they were wiped out in one go. They -1 armour in combat can make them very fragile. So you really have to think about how and where you're going to go in, and how you're going to support the attack. One advantage with the Welsh here, as I say, I've got a lot of reaction ability, so I can go in my turn and then go in their turn as well and really mess up on how they're going to manoeuvre in that. But it was a really good game. Really enjoying this version 2. As I say, on the I think it's the 27th, 25th. It's a Sunday of May. We're going to have a bit of a get together with our SAGA players. I don't know how many there'll be. Probably 8 or 10 of us. Some traps travelling down from the north to take part. It's just going to be a 4-pointer. It's going to be part of the kind of experiment, just to test to see how balanced these games are. Does a 4-pointer still go as far as I want them to? We've had some 4-point games, and so far they all seem balanced. It was one of the big downsides with the previous one. You could clearly see it was made for a 6-point game. There was too much of a disadvantage. And as I said, for this tournament, because someone else is doing Welsh, and I've already done 4 pointers of Welsh, and I know it kind of works, I might risk the Anglo-Saxons and try and do a levy horde and dig out my Rohan infantry for that. But we'll see. So until next time, guys, farewell.